Hello, everybody. Uh, Again, a disclaimer. Uh, in this video and podcast, there is no affiliation recognized. We are a neutral ground, and that the topics discussed are topics that are presented for the well-being of others, and they are by no means a reflection upon which affiliation one may be. So take that as you will. So I had a couple of topics bouncing around in my head, and one was adversity and maintaining character. One was the force and its aspects and how our relationship is with it. And the other is maintaining our character in through adversity. So, and the one that I was flipping a coin on was adversity and maintaining our character, or the force and its aspects and our relationship with it. So flipping the coin, I'm going to go with the force in itself. And yes, I am leaning towards more of the Jedi path here, because so many people have questions about it and their lack of understanding with it and our relationship with it. So for those on the Jedi path, there's a lot in general that don't understand how the force and the relationship with us. And there are those that go along the path and work the path as just an action alone and say that be the Jedi path. And I'm like, okay, that's fine if that works for you. But there are also those that use the Jedi path, walk, live it, that also believe in the force in itself. And I'm gonna touch on that. So we all know that there is a energy that each of us possess, interacts with, and that with that energy there are three areas within that, or the personal or the internal, is everything around us and how we're connected to it and its connection to us and our relationship with it and its relationship with us. And that there's the universal or the cosmic, that is kind of the big daddy, the mother of it all, and where everything arrives from, force in itself. Generalize the force, and that
Tao, I think you froze. Tao,
yeah.
I think you froze.
All right, am I back?
Yeah.
Okay, so let me shut my phone down. Let me shut my phone off here. Sorry about the interruption, guys. I'm just going to turn my phone off, actually. Yes, we have technical difficulties in this thing. All right, come on now. Hi, everybody. Power off. All right, there we go. So where was I? Oh yeah. So we'll refer to it in general as the force, or goodbye, hello, may it guide you and be with you and such. So, and people, students, people starting out on this that come across, or in search of this, often use it as just a statement without any real understanding of the influences, in particular, to how we come to be influenced and during meditations or in our daily living, and those unexplained directions we may go. Walking, something just directed me this way. I just felt like I should go and walk this way, drive. Something alerted me. And I don't know why, but then again, when I came across this, I was able to help somebody. Or I got this answer from somewheres, but it was clarity. Or during a dream, or during a meditation, or during when I was just sitting and drinking a cup of coffee, for example. And what came to me was a solution to a problem, a question to an answer, or an answer to a question. And then, or or an enlightenment moment, an enlightening moment happened. So you have different aspects in that in itself. Well, as some of us know that have been on the path for a while, understand, and I'm going to catch some pushback on this. I'm going to catch some flash on this, because there are going to be people that are going to argue, and that's fine. That's valid, and that's their stance. That it all starts with us as a person, and beginning to understand what our part is, what our place is, and what our purpose is. And we first have to understand and recognize and realize there is an interaction personally. And that's the personal, that's the inner. But do we understand as a person how to listen to it? What is the frequency that we hear it, or feel it, or sense it? How do we interpret it in our minds? This is a question that people ask frequently. Well, for example, that internal pressure, that fighting, and we know the answer to something, but we can't quite figure out where this comes from. How come I'm feeling this? Why am I getting this today? The answer to people that walk on the Jedi path is that is the force speaking to you internally. and it is telling you something. But how do we listen to it? How do we interpret that? And this could go into meditations. This could go into what is your strongest thought with that. And sometimes it goes against what our intuitions, what our natural thought would be, what our want to do is. Though we do have choice in this matter. And if it's on a daily living, sure, we can go about our day. But when it comes to things that are important or decisions we have to make, then that's where we really hone in ourselves to it. That's when we have a better understanding. And again, but we still have to learn to listen to it. Now, how do we do that? That I can present in a class or a presentation after this. So the internal is that voice, that other narrative within us, that other guidance within us, that direction that we go. It tells us this might be a better way for you to go. This would quite possibly be in agreement with what one needs to do for the best outcome. And this is where people, they say, well, the force told me to. The force never tells us to do anything. The force guides, the force directs, it helps decide internally when it comes to us on a personal matter. And this can help us make decisions and choices that suit our well-being. And then from there, the living is that external direction that we go. Our action, our seeing something, a external feeling and sense of a moment. Say we're really involved in something we're enjoying, and yet everything seems to stop, but yet it feels boundless and endless. It's a sense of just a moment when there's minutes passing by. It's a connection or a feeling of connection to everything around you. It's that relationship that none of us have truly ever really felt, but have in a way longed for. And there's those moments of fulfillment that we gain and get, that sense of purpose and place. I'm in a tub of warm water, or I'm in my mom's arms, or my dad's arms, or a loved one's arms, a blanket, that engulfing feeling, that immersement. And yet a sense of security. Without knowing why. And the best way I can describe that, and I was having a conversation with my student the other night about this, is that we know that geese fly to warmer climates or colder climates, whichever. Salmon upstream. That direction that we may want to walk without knowing why, but we end up where we want to end up. Maybe we took a left instead of a right turn and avoided a collision and a traffic jam because some guy decided to not pay attention to the light, or you got some guy that's stumbling, drunk, and intoxicated in the middle of an intersection and slamming on somebody's hood or yelling at people, right? Or avoided a mishap that was tragic. But yet we look back and we're like, wow, I just missed a whole bunch of stuff. Okay. Why? How come? What was that external sensation, that external push? That, in short term, is what the living force coming to us, letting us know, hey, man, go this way. Hey, you're okay. You're safe. And then, or maybe during a meditation, answers come, solutions. Yeah, that in many ways is the living, the external. How that's the middle. That's our relationship with it. But we have to respect that. And I'll get into the more of this in a minute, in a bit. And now you have the universal, which is where, or the cosmic, where all of this comes from. It's the granddaddy, the godfather, the big man, the mom, the source of it, the reservoir where everything goes, and where we end up, and where all this trickles down. Now, let's take a moment and let's think about this for a second. How does all this play a part with each other? How and what is my relationship to it? Where is my place in this? How do I respect this? What and why should I respect this? Or why should I even believe in it? No one says you have to. But there are two schools of thought here where some go and just go by the change of behavior and action and choices. And you're not wrong. Others go and believe that for one to be a Jedi and to walk this path, one needs to have a understanding and a relationship with the Force on its aspects and its levels. This side, I would agree. But do all of us use, communicate, and touch and pull and open to the Force all the time, every day? Not all of us. Are there times we can go and just be all right? Yes. But to further ourselves, to gain those moments that can open those other doors and those other areas that we may naturally be born with, gifts, abilities that we've been looking for a way to connect to deeper and to further our use of them, then I would still believe and go with the Force does aid in that. It does help give us more of a clarity to it, more of an understanding. So in this, let's delve and go a little deeper. Let's touch on what may be controversial with this, where people may have doubt. Now, we all have freedom of choice. We all have freedom of will. That goes without saying. And we all have that privilege. We all have that choice. We can all make the decision of which way do I choose? And what do I decide? Well, yeah, we can go against something that knows greater than us, that's been around far longer than you and I were ever a twinkle in our mom and dad's eye. Our grandparents, our forefathers, people that pioneered before and during the creation of this planet. And there will be people that would argue differently. But however, what has it witnessed? What has it seen? What does it know that we don't? What has it stored within its own flow and in its own memory to give us, if we're willing to accept our place with it? Now, people say this is the will of the Force that I do this. And that would be true on many levels. And that depends on what your affiliation would be. And some more extreme than others. Now, I'm going to touch on this for a moment. And this will lead me into another segment at some other point. That you have your light, you have your dark, and then you have your middle grounds, which are the gray. Each of them use and view the Force in a different way. Light side use it to help maintain and look for more diplomatic ways, more peaceful ways, more enlightening ways to solve controversy and dilemmas, and the diplomacy part, that all things are, and the respect and the peaceful, more flourishing relationship between everybody, which I would agree is in many aspects is a good way to go. It avoids the controversy. It keeps things at a peaceful resolution and at a peaceful temperature. And then you have the darker, which would be more of a gain of power, a gain of control, a gain of how can I flourish and use this to insert my will, to become greater than I am. And that's just a Cliff Note version. And then you have the middle, the gray part, which people will argue that either you are a Jedi or you're not in this, and you're being selfish. This is where I disagree. There are those that inherently and innately, with how their upbringing came, and how their thoughts were shaped, that would prefer a more peaceful, but are willing to take matters to a level for the greater resolution for everybody with questionable measures. And none of it is in selfish means. But preferred diplomacy before final action, which is not how the light side Jedi would prefer. So, and there's where the controversy goes, because in that grayer aspect, there is more of an independent action and walk and thought, but yet still align with the light side Jedi in many ways, but are just willing to take that extra step or those extra couple of steps to ensure. So the light side Jedi use it for guidance, use it for diplomacy, as I was saying. In the gray or the middle, draw from it, but also yet use it in a way of more in the hammer method instead of the surgical scalpel. But yet you can also use it as a scalpel as well. But there's also an emotional tithing to that, which I can go into later. So our personal connection is during our meditation, during our reflection, decisions, choices. What should I do? This is where we have our personal relationship. This is our personal room, our personal space with it. That one-to-one time. That quiet moment, that quiet thought. When everything is at peace. This is when we start to understand our relationship personally with it. This start to gain a sight. This is when,
It started freezing up again.
okay. This is when we can be reassured. This is the time we are spending within ourselves internally. Those moments of conflict, the emotions, our personal reviews. This is when the Force helps us sort this. A clarification. The time that is very personal, that is very private to each. And then we can come to a point of reconciliation within ourselves. Sometimes the answers that come to us are not always the ones we want, but the ones we need. It's the confirmation. That decision we needed to make. And notice I said choices and decisions. The decision is the final resolution and result that we have concluded to of what we should be doing, what we need to be doing. That's our decision. That's being decisive. The external part
I think you froze again, Tao.
is that again, let me turn off my TV. Give this a moment and let everything catch up.
It's working now.
Okay. All right. Maybe me turning off my TV. So once we've committed to our actions from our decisions and choices, it's what continues to influence our endeavors. This is what helps us draw from to continue forward. This is what helps us gain more strength from. More of almost an autopilot or almost a cruise control, one would say. But yet, we don't have to think about things. We just know we're reassured by the presence, by what we feel, the sense within, the external. Remember that water, that tub of warm water, that blanket? Cat. Maybe my cat's playing with my mouse. That might be doing it. And that flowing stream that we feel it closest to, that we see, the wind, the trees around us when we say maybe be in a forest, that sense of being, that connection. Maybe there's a feeling of an increased of energy. That is the immersement within it. And this is what helps direct us. This is our time within it. This is our activity with it, our presence within it. So how and what is our relationship with this? And in a way, the arbitrary answer could be, well, we just are, provided we allow ourselves to be. And this is very true in many ways. This is the director. This is that push. This is that, which way do I turn? Which it's interacting with us internally. It's the switchboard, one could say. But all this is for naught unless you have to have the source. Think of it this way. Your lights, where do they come from? Power station, the plant, the nuclear power plant, if you live in an area that's got one. So it all strives and derives from there. It knows, the cosmic knows, has all this stored information, has all the experience from everybody else within it. People passing, there's messages, the storage, of course. How do I gain access to this? Well, first of all, you have to decide you want it. It's not just going to come. It could be around you all day long. It can be punching you in the head all day long, every day. But unless you decided to listen to it, it's just going to keep punching you in your head, and you're just going to wake up with big knots and goose eggs on your noggin and can't figure out where it came from and why am I so dumb? And why am I so ignorant to this? And I might get struck on that one. But however, in the code, it talks about there's no death but the force. This is very true because all we are generally is just the vessel. We are that messenger. So, but how do we have the relationship with it? First, we must humble ourselves to that and that acceptance of it, and want to reconstruct our lives in the alchemy of it and understand the ebb, the flow. So how do we do this? Learn to have faith. Learn to have a belief, because we all as people have some type of spiritual belief. We all have some way, some influence in our lives, whether it be on the esoteric or in the physical. For the Buddhist, you have Buddha. For the Christians, you have the cross as an example and representation, the sacrament. So there's an influence and guidance from each. And the explanation of all this is going to vary in the degree. And in a way, I hope all this is making sense, and I hope I'm not going in circles on this. The law is still so very simple. Now, how is it simple? Getting out of our own way. Step aside. We are merely a Volkswagen to a fully loaded semi truck. A Volkswagen Beetle cannot withstand a
It froze again. Hello? Cow? Hello?
Hello?
Hi.
May I take your order?
I'd like some French fries and maybe a tea. A tea would be good.
You know, where you can get that tea? You can go over to the local store there at the corner and you can get this. Buzz off. I got Diet Coke, Coke and egg. May you now pull up. It'll be $25. So, so the humble beetle has to pull aside because it did not want to stand in the way of that semi. That would be very catastrophic. I digress. So we have to understand that we are not in charge. We have our will. We do. We have that freedom of choice. We can go by that all day long. And the majority of us do. But also we understand our place and we throw aside arrogance and the self-centered ego. We allow ourselves to be led and guided by something greater to maintain that connection and relationship. Now, all this comes with a great deal of respect, and being that we don't hold all the answers, that we do not know better. And we can try to disprove this all day long, every day. And I will tell you from experience, I have been proven wrong on many accounts. Oh, I did this. Well, later on in that day or later on in that week, it's coming back to bite me in the butt. I knew better. However, again, it is what it is. But that's the learning process. So we have to learn to step aside. Let our ego quit being the lead. Step down off our soapbox. Learn to listen, as our parents did with us, which we thought we always knew better. Now, how does one listen internally, stop, uncloud your mind with needless thoughts and needless actions and desires. Think about what might be best. Open that door of what might be best. What is it I need? Not is it what I want, but what is it that I need that will get me what I want? I know that sounds contradictory. Well, the wants, not what I need. What we want is to be better than we were. What we need is to do that which gets us there. And then we have a better life, and the rest comes afterwards. You have to learn to read the directions on how to bake a cake, right? You have to learn how to apply the icing. But how do we do that? We have to learn to listen. We have to learn to watch. We have to learn to listen. No one knows how to bake a cake and put icing on a cake right out of the gate, do we? I don't. I don't know about y'all, but I don't. So in this, like that Volkswagen Beetle, stand aside. Stop what is being done. And people will say, well, what I'm doing feels good. Well, hell yeah, that's why we're doing it, because it feels good. No one likes the work. No one wants to put in the effort because of the discomfort. Learning how to walk, you've scuffed your knees a few times, you've busted up your palms and bruised your palms, and maybe got a little cherry or something on your forehead. You know, that little bruise and scrape right there, got a little cherry. Well, yeah. But we have to do that. It's a learning process. How? Stop what you are doing. I had to learn this. And many still do, and many have a greater understanding. Many understand how the force on its three levels and aspects affect and influence our lives. That's because we've learned how to stand aside. How to allow ourselves to listen. To know how to take that moment, that quiet time. And listen to what knows greater than us. So we have to become still and start feeling for that sensation, allow it to happen. Allow that dormant part to start to wake up a bit, to feel something different. That something that's, you know, is there, that resides. Allow it to wake up, allow it to open. Let your will stand aside and your ego. Step down and become humble. Stop knowing and abandon and let go. Walk away from what you know. I'm not saying forget. Walk away from your own ideas. Walk away from your own preconceived notions and thoughts. Open yourself to something different. You can't see it. You can't see it flowing through the air. You can't see it. It's not like you can see with lightning or with the arcing, at a power plant during a high humidity area. You can't see that electrical charge. But when you start to feel like somebody did plug you into that, and yes, I know I'm kind of giving somebody the what to feel, but it's very similar to each. And you'll know your own, because we're all different. We all have our different levels of what is the sense of internally feeling this. It will be a waking up moment. A revelation, one could say. And this is when we begin to learn to understand what connection we have. But the part that really connects us to it is that middle ground of when we start to feel the internal and the external, the living influence with each other. When we feel it, but internally they jive. Internally, we're going, okay, yeah. That one, say, if one is walking down a sidewalk or walking in a department store, and then your inside goes, hey, I need to move or sidestep. And then at the right moment, we kind of feel that external push of sidestepping and we miss somebody. And no one has had their direction disrupted. Or if we turn around at the right moment, we see and catch something at the right moment. We witness something at the right moment. And granted, not everybody can be on that perfect timing with it. I'm definitely not. And then also maybe we see something beginning to happen and read the situation. And that internal instinct tells us, yeah, that's the communication. That is the relationship. That is the flow of it. That's the message. That is the instructions. Physically, which mentally also tells us without the body, without the mind, the body won't work. It's proven. But the universal, the cosmic saw all of this, the overwatch and the overseeing, the source of it. So that one saw it coming. That is when we are in complete communication during a meditation and at peace and in solace. When extraordinary things can happen. Say maybe during a meditation, we saw something foretelling. Where do you think it came from? How long has that been in storage and ready for you to, and when you were ready to see it? And for it to come into your mind and feel it emotionally, feel it physically. A definition, a question answered. Gaining more introspect and understanding of our purpose and place. But yet in this, once we learn this, the responsibility goes up. The consequences of our actions go up. Our being a representative of this goes up. The example goes up. The weight that we carry goes up. Because once we've understood this and we know how to gain access or open ourselves to it, there is so much power in this. We have to respect what it is. We have to learn that respect for what it is. Abilities are. And yes, great harm can come from it, or great accomplishments can happen as well that can benefit others from it. But when do we decide, or when do we know? When one is in connection and one is allowing. In definition, permitting. Then we will know what our course of action shall be. But this is a personal choice and a personal decision. And by all means, discuss this. If in question, discuss it. That also helps with the understanding. Going to someone who has been at it longer is a great source to get a better and deeper understanding. And this is where these things are passed on, where we gain our understanding and our information and more clarification of our relationship in place with this. Now, is it burdensome? Well, yes, it is. Because we don't want to go out of our way and bother somebody else. That is our ego talking. And there are reasons why people come across each other to talk about these things. There is always a reason. And there's always questions. There should be. There should be no blind faith, but there should be faith. Because without faith, one doesn't even need to start. One has to believe that there is faith, and then thus we go to faith. And we believe in that faith. Absolutely. Without question. But do we question our faith all the time? Should we? Yes. It keeps us in check. That, again, we have to remember we don't know everything. Is this a lifelong journey? Yes, provided you choose to stay with it and choose to stay on it. It will always be. And it may lead somebody in a different direction. But hopefully that direction they go is beneficial to further their growth, to further them becoming better and different than they were. And though not everybody will agree, that's not up to that person to agree or disagree. It just is. That is that person's soul path to walk. Is it going to have adversities? Yes. Is it going to cause somebody to want to cry? Absolutely. Is it going to cause somebody to want to quit? Definitely. But all of it is inevitable. There's pain either way. One can choose or one can't choose, but there's going to be pain either way. It's all about choice. But in this, I hope that this causes clarification, or at least gives some clarification to the questions of what is the force, what might help define it. Well, I'll sit here and tell you that there is no completely 100% defining of it. All we know is it is. All we know is its presence. We know it's there. There are those of us that know this, that walk with it all the time. And sometimes when we say something, we're like, go, I have no clue where that came from, but it was profound and made a whole lot of sense and made us look a whole lot more intelligent. And we have felt way more intelligent. Guess what? Without realizing it, that wisdom the force holds just gave you a slap of it and spoon fed it to you, and you regurgitated it. You were at one with it for that moment. That realization that changed everything and the solution that came, that moment of clarity that resolved a problem of 5 different people were arguing about. Yeah. That is the force communicating with you. That is the force at work. That is the living force doing its bidding. And you didn't realize it. Hopefully that helps answer some questions. But again, we have to let ourselves step aside. Is it okay to question our purpose in it? Sure. Is it okay to realize our purpose in it? Sure. Is it worth it? Absolutely. But however, remember, none of us have all the answers. That's it. That's my thought for the day on this. Hopefully it helps. Thank you. Tal Griffin out.